Alright, so I did my presentation on deforestation in the Amazon. My name is Mark Lanham. So, the first recognizable form of deforestation in the Amazon began in the 1970s when the Brazil military saw the potential for profit within the Amazon. At this time, there were around 5 million square kilometers of rainforest filled with natural resources. However, most of it was inaccessible at the time. So the government decided to build the Trans-Amazonian Highway, a project that would run 3,200 kilometers throughout the rainforest. Looking to move people onto the highway, they offered people free land along the highway and even paid people to settle there, sparking a land rush. Most of the land turned into pastures where they raised their cattle to sell beef, and then they ran out of land to feed their cattle. They would clear another plot and settle in. Between 1978 and 1988, the average of over 20,000 square kilometers were cut down each year. This area became known as the Arc of Deforestation. A decade after decade, people in the world were eating more and more meat, in turn raised the trend for more soybeans. So, by the early 2000s, farmers took over these pastures that were cleared out and turned them into massive soybean farms. Soybeans are one of the most profitable crops in Brazil. During this time, ranchers continued to move their cattle deep into the rainforest, clearing out land, often illegally, causing the arc of deforestation to move further north. Staggering deforestation in the Amazon attracted fierce resistance from environmental groups. At the time, the Brazilian government was ran under President Lula da Silva, finally stepped in, and Marina Silva, Brazil's environmental minister, in 2003 decided to step in and come up with a plan to stop deforestation. The plan started by putting more of the rainforest under protection. At the time, only 28% was protected. The new plan added more reserves where business activities were strictly banned. More sustainable use reserves were created where some businesses like Brazilian nut harvesting and rubber tapping, which didn't destroy the rainforest, were allowed. More land was demarcated by indigenous people who preserved the forest. Over time, more of the rainforest was protected during turning into a share and sustainable place. By 2012, 47% of the Amazon is put under some form of protection, while the rest of it remained a mix of pasture, farms, and rainforests. To prevent further deforestation here, the government strengthened the forest code, which said landowners could only clear 20% of their private land. This law monitored the Forest Service, which was part of the Environmental Ministry, which had jurisdiction over all of these private lands. The key to enforce this entire plan was strengthening INBAMA, a policy agency that would track and fine people illegally deforesting the forest. The plan showed results, with deforestation rates falling by more than half in 2006. Around the same time, the activist movement Greenpeace was pushing the agricultural movement to make a change. Major food companies started feeling pressure from the consumers for participating in deforestation. So in 2006, several got together and signed a soy moratorium, I think, which meant they could continue operation within the existing farm, but they would buy soy. They wouldn't buy soy from any newly deforesting land in the Amazon. 3 years later, beef companies signed a similar agreement. Brazil also received money from other countries in hope to help protect the rainforest. Under this protection, deforestation rates plummeted to historic lows. Brazil's soy and beef industries continued to grow thanks to more efficient techniques such as ranchers started growing crops in their existing pastures and farmers planted 2 crops a year on their land instead of one, making the Amazon both protected and profitable. The Rollistas, a group of conservative politicians who represented the interests of agricultural industry, including farmers and ranchers, start gaining influence in Brazil. In the early 2000s, they had about 17% of the seats in Congress, but by 2012, they had about 30%. Enough power to push the president to weaken the forest code, which allowed landowners to get away with clearing more land. In 2016, they pushed the president to slash Mbamba budgets, who illegally seized land in the Amazon to keep it. These changes led to a rise in deforestation rates. So, President Jar, in 2018, as the Rollistas controlled 44% of the Congress at this time, President Jar, who was part of the Rollistas, was elected as president. On his second day of office, he moved the Forest Service, which monitored the forest code, to the Agricultural Ministry, led by the Rollistas. He also worked to systematically weaken the Environmental Ministry. Under his leadership, deforestation has increased significantly in 2019, most of it taking place in protected areas. So, setting fires is a common way to clear land, and in August 2019, over 3,000 fires were burned in the Amazon, 3 times as many than the previous year. Many set illegally by ranchers, farmers, and landowners, given courage to buy the new stance on the Amazon. The Amazon is unlikely to survive another wave of deforestation. In the last 50 years, let me see where I'm at. In the last 50 years, it's estimated that 17% of the Amazon has been deforested. In 2018, a report estimated that it reaches 20 to 25%, the whole rainforest could start to collapse. There wouldn't be enough for it to recycle all the water it needs, causing the trees to die, which would release a huge amount of CO2 into the atmosphere, further warming the planet. In Brazil, many industries continue to ignore the signs for the sake of profit. Clearing the Amazon for short-term overlooks the fact that the planet as we know it wouldn't exist without this rainforest. That's why it was saved once before. And that concludes my presentation on deforestation in the Amazon. Thank you.